And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, wars and rumors of wars.
On Friday, four-star United States Air Force General Mike Minihan said that Washington might possibly go to war with China in the next 2 years. In an internal memo to the officers he commands, Minihan said that the war would be most likely over Taiwan and asked the officers to be prepared. The document in question first emerged on social media, which was later confirmed by the Pentagon as factual. In the memorandum, the head of the Air Mobility Command, Minihan, said, and I quote, "I hope I am wrong. My gut tells me we will fight in 2025. He also asserted that the main target should be to deter and, if required, defeat China. The reasoning behind this speculation, as Minihan said in the document, is that since both Taiwan and US have their presidential election in 2024, he predicted that the US will be distracted, which would give Chinese President Xi Jinping an opportunity to move on to Taiwan. The US Air Force General also spoke about how the Chinese president has secured his third term and set his war council in October of last year. He added saying, Xi's team, reason and opportunity are all aligned for 2025. According to NBC, the US Air Mobility Command has some 50,000 service members and nearly 500 planes, which are responsible for transport and refueling. In the memorandum, while asking his officers to prepare, he also called for the Mobile Command personnel with weapons qualifications to fire a clip at the target and aim for the head. The document, which was first seen on social media, was later confirmed as genuine by the Pentagon after a spokesperson responded to an AFP query. This comes as several senior US officials in recent months have said that China has seemingly sped up its time frame to seize control of Taiwan, the democratically ruled island for 24 million people that Beijing has long claimed as a part of its sovereign territory.
We have some breaking news for you guys. China war mobilization law begins March 1st, 2023. This is a very significant news update, folks, because China is mobilizing reserve troops for war with the United States, because that's their enemy, folks. China's enemy is the United States. That's the only enemy that they have. It's pretty much United States and India, but it seems like they settle their difference with India. So this news is coming in from Hal Turner. And before y'all guys go crazy over Hal Turner, folks, I have confirmed this information. This information is true, that China signed a law last December 30th, 2022, authorizing the mobilization of their entire country. This covers their entire country, men and women, and this law will come into effect on March the 1st in just a little bit over a month. So let's go ahead and read this thing. So here is the law. This is in Chinese, and you can see the date here when this law was signed. It was signed December. Here's 12 right here, 12/30/2022. So the law was signed last December the 30th, 2022. This is in Chinese, but folks, I got a treat for you. I'm going to translate this Chinese so you can read this. So a lot of people are going to say, well, you can't prove that this is true. Well, I'm going to prove it to you, folks. You know, and it's a real shame, though, that I have to prove everything that I do on my channel, because a lot of people call me fake news. But, you know, that's the day that we live in. You actually have to give proof. So I'm going to give proof that this law is true. And they actually did sign it. So it says the Communist Party, the CCP, has quietly passed its reserve military service law, which will take effect on March the 1st, 2023. Anyone who is 18 years or older is obliged to enlist after a national defense mobilization is announced. So once this law goes into effect across China, everyone in the entire country of 1.5 billion people, 1.5 billion people that is over 18 years or older, is obliged to enlist in the national defense mobilization. So China is going to mobilize their entire country of 1.5 billion people. How many reserve soldiers are they going to put together? Folks, this could be tens of millions of soldiers. Tens of millions of soldiers could be mobilized against a war with the United States. This is alarming news, folks, and we've been predicting something like this for a long time, that the United States is going to be going to war with China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and it's coming to pass right before your very eyes. It says the notice shown above instructs Chinese citizens, after receiving the call-up notice, reservists must report to the designated place at the specific time in accordance with the requirements. After the state issued the mobilization order, the reserve personnel who have not received the call-up notice shall not leave the reserve registration place without the approval of the troops and the military service organs of the reserve registration place. If they have left, they shall return immediately or stand by in the same place. Females need to serve too, except during pregnancy, maternity leave, or breastfeeding. The shortest time to serve is 4 years. So once these soldiers are drafted into the Chinese military, they're going to be in the Chinese military for 4 years. Ordinary reservists can apply for a discharge after reaching the age of 30. Officers need to serve until 45 years old to 60 years old, depending on their ranks. So China is announcing back, this was done quietly, folks. This was done quietly. This is the first time that I've heard about this. You may have heard about it, but I haven't seen anything on YouTube or anything on the news about this reserve law being passed on December 30th, 2022. So we're going to take you to the actual law. So a lot of people that don't believe me, I'm going to show you the actual law. This is the actual law that was signed here again, December 30th, right here, December. There's the month, 12, the day 30th, 2022. And this is quite long, folks, so I did not translate all of it, but we translated a little bit for you. So I'm going to show you, this is the actual law right here. This is all written in Chinese because they do live in China, folks, and they do speak Chinese. So this won't be in English. So you can see how long this law is actually written out. So there it is. I'm going to scroll on down. It's very, very long. It's written in characters. Chinese right there, writing in characters. So now we're going to go to Google Translate to all you people that want to know this is the truth. So here it is, folks. This is Google Translate, and let me put this on the screen. So hold on a minute. Let me see if I can get this on the screen for you guys. So we're going to go down a little bit at a time and translate some of this for you. So you can see on your screen Google Translate, and over to the left is the Chinese lettering. This is the Chinese lettering. It says, Law of People's Republic of China on Reservists adopted at the 38th meeting of the Standing Committee of the 13th National People's Congress on December 30th. On December 30th, 2022. So you can see when they adopted this law, and we're going to go down to the next one. I'm just going to translate a little bit of this for you. So let me go to the next one. It's going to take a little bit of time, but I want to show you that this is actually true. This is not something somebody made up, but this is actually happening right now. So this is what you're looking at on your screen is Chapter 1 of the law. So let's go ahead and read along with this. Chapter 1, General Principles. Article 1, in order to improve the system of reserve personnel, standardize the management of reserve personnel, safeguard the legitimate rights and interests of reserve personnel, ensure that reserve personnel effectively perform their duties and missions, and strengthen the building of the national defense forces in accordance with the Constitution, the National Defense Law of the People's Republic of China and military service law of the People's Republic in China enacts this law. Article 2, the term reserve personnel as mentioned in this law refers to citizens who perform their military service obligations in accordance with the law and are pre-registered in the active duty units of the Chinese People's Liberation Army or the reserve units of the Chinese People's Liberation Army to perform service, reserve service. Reserve personnel are divided into reserve officers and reserve soldiers. Reserve soldiers are divided into reserve sergeants and reserve soldiers. Reserve personnel and members of the National Armed Forces are an important source of supplementary troops for active duty in wartime. So, folks, this is very significant that they're even stating this. They're an important source of supplementary troops for active duty troops in wartime. Article 3, the work of the reserve personnel adheres to the leadership of the Communist Party of China, implements Xi Jinping's thought on strengthening the military, adheres to the overall national security concept, implements the military strategic policy of the new era, is driven by military needs, directed by war preparations. So they're getting ready for war, directed by war preparations and focused on quality construction, improve the ability and level of reservists to perform their mission. So China is calling up everyone 18 years old in the entire country of 1.5 billion people. This is the first chapter. Let's go to another chapter here. Like I said, I did not translate everything because this is so long, folks. The translation is so long, but we're going to read a couple of these for you just to show you that this is true. This information is true that I am presenting to you this morning, that China has announced the call-up of 1.5 billion people, the reserve soldiers. I don't know how many of those are going to be called up, but they're requiring everybody from 18 years old to reserve with the military. Article 4, reserve personnel must obey orders strictly, observe discipline, be brave and tenacious, not afraid of sacrifice, participate in political, education, and military training in accordance to regulations, undertake combat readiness duties, perform non-combat military operations tasks, and be ready to be called to participate in wars at any time to defend the motherland. So see, folks, they're getting ready. We're going to be fighting China before this is over, and China is assembling their invasion force. China is going to attempt to invade the United States of America. Folks, there has been many prophecies the last 30 to 40 years by Henry Gruver, by David Wilkerson, by other people that says that China is going to invade the west coast of the United States. Well, now they're activating reserve soldiers from a pool of 1.5 billion people. How many millions of reserve soldiers are they going to be calling up? I'm bringing you the evidence right now. This is coming. The state protects the status and rights of interest of reserve personnel in accordance with the law. Reservists enjoy the honor and treatment and corresponding to their performance of duties. Article 5, the Central Military Commission shall lead the work of the reservists. The political work of the Department of the Central Military Commission is responsible for organizing and guiding the management of reserve personnel. The National Defense Mobilization Department of the Central Military Commission is responsible for organizing the formation, mobilization, and recruitment of reserve personnel and other related work. Other departments of the Central Military Commission are responsible for work related to reserve personnel according to the... So I'm not going to read everything, folks. Like I said, this is very long. So we're going to go to the last one. We're going to go to the last translation here on this document, and then I'm going to show you the document one more time. But what does this mean? This means that China is mobilizing for war. Folks, a country does not do this unless they are going to war. Russia has just authorized a mobilization last year of over 380,000 soldiers. They are mobilizing more soldiers now. Now the country of communist China is also mobilizing their soldiers for war with the United States. This will happen. It's going to happen. We will be fighting the Chinese before it's over in the next couple years. I don't know when this is going to happen. So this is the last part of the document. He said, or higher authorities, other corrections, responsible leaders, and directly responsible personnel are punished according to the law. Any government agency, organization, enterprise, or institution that refuses to complete the work task of reserve personnel stipulated in this law obstructs citizens from fulfilling their obligations as reserve personnel or engages in other acts that impede the work of reserve personnel shall be ordered to make corrections by the local people's government or at the above the country level. It may be fined. Responsible leaders and directly responsible persons shall be sanctioned and punished according to law. Anyone who illegally produces and trades reserve uniforms and reserve uniforms shall be punished according to law. Article 62. Let's go on down. So I want to get to the last part of this law here. He said, Chapter 10, this law shall apply to persons who have been discharged from active service in the Chinese People's Armed Forces and serve in their reserve service. All right, here's what we're looking for right here for Article 65 of this law. This law that I have just read parts to you shall come into force on March the 1st, 2023. That is just less than a month, folks. In less than a month, the law of the People's Republic of China on reserve officers shall be repealed simultaneously. So this is what has happened. Breaking news: China is mobilizing millions and millions of soldiers for a war with the United States. This law will come into force on March the 1st, that people over 18 years old in the entire country of China will have to register to be reserve soldiers in the People's Liberation Army. And what does this mean? That means that we're going to war with China, folks. That's what it means. And I want to show you this one more time. I forgot to show you this at the beginning, but let me show you the entire law once again. This is the entire law in Chinese. Like I said, you can go to Google Translate and translate the whole thing yourself. So I don't have time this morning to translate this entire text, but this is the law right here that was signed on December 30th, 2022, authorizing the mobilization of every person in China, men and women over 18 years old, for service in the Chinese military. And why are they doing this, folks? They're doing this because we're going to war with China. We have provoked Russia into a war in Ukraine. We have just shot down a Chinese balloon off the east coast of the United States, a Chinese spy balloon. Folks, we're going into World War III.
China's Air Force has released a video that appears to show a simulated attack on a U.S. airbase on the Pacific island of Guam.
The video, released on Saturday by the People's Liberation Army Air Force, shows H-6 bombers taking off from a desert base, then firing a missile at a seaside runway halfway through. A brief description for the video says, "We are the defenders of the motherland's aerial security." The release of the video came as China carried out its second day of drills near Taiwan, which it sees as part of its territory. Tensions have been rising over a senior U.S. State Department official's visit to Taipei amid an uptick in China's military activities. Taiwan's president has denounced Beijing, claiming it's purposefully inflaming tensions.
War with China would produce destruction on a scale unseen by the United States since 1945. China continues to strengthen its military and maintains the right to use force against Taiwan. U.S. officials warned that a Chinese invasion is a real possibility and implied that the U.S. would become involved in such a conflict. CSIS conducted 24 wargame iterations of a Chinese invasion of Taiwan. The good news is that Chinese forces were unable to conquer the island, and Taiwan endured as an autonomous democracy. The challenges confronting a Chinese invasion are formidable. However, the costs were sobering. In 4 weeks of fighting, the United States typically lost hundreds of aircraft, 2 aircraft carriers, and up to 24 other ships. Bases on Guam were devastated. The Taiwanese economy suffered extensive damage. Japan was often dragged into the war and its bases attacked. China also took terrible losses, often including more than 100 warships and tens of thousands of soldiers killed, wounded, or captured. Such a failure might endanger the Chinese Communist Party's grip on power. The war might last until exhaustion, producing an unstable peace with recurring conflict. The terrifying possibility of nuclear escalation also looms over any war involving two nuclear powers. The costs and risks for both sides strongly argue for avoiding war. Both will need to pursue political and diplomatic strategies that contribute to that end. For the United States and its allies, military deterrence will be a crucial part of that equation. How can that be achieved? The United States should harden bases, work with allies, particularly Japan, for additional basing options, continue to make its forces more survivable, and buy more long-range missiles, particularly anti-ship missiles, because some inventories are critically low. The Taiwanese can adopt the porcupine strategy, deploy more mobile anti-ship missiles, build a fully manned and highly capable army, and spend less on expensive and vulnerable ships and aircraft. Deterrence is possible and affordable, but it will require planning, some resources, and political will.
You really need to bring China into the creation of a new world order, financial world order. You need a new world order that China has to be part of the process of creating it, and they have to buy in, they have to own it, the same way as, let's say, the United States owns the Washington Consensus, the current order. An orderly decline of the dollar is actually desirable. Certainly, a decline in the value of the dollar is necessary. China will emerge as the motor replacing the U.S. consumer. China will be the engine driving it forward, and the U.S. will be actually a drag that's being pulled along.
And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, wars and rumors of wars.